Take chai. But Maharajji, I've already had chai. Take chai. Okay. Go take khana. Maharajji, I just ate an hour ago. Maharajji wants you to take khana now. Okay. Maharajji sent these sweets over for you. But I couldn't eat another thing. It's Maharajji's wish that you have these sweets. Okay. Maharajji sent me to give you chai. Oh no, not again. I'm only doing my duty. It is Maharajji's wish. Okay. A devotee just arrived from Delhi with a huge bucket of sweets. Maharajji is distributing it. He wants you to come. Oh my God, I'll explode. It's Prasad. Thank you, Maharajji. Oh no, not the apples too. Ah, thank you, Maharajji. While many experienced Maharajji's qualities of timelessness or love at darshans, everybody who came before him felt his concern that they be fed. Often, even before you could sit down, he would insist that you take prasad. People just never went away from him hungry. I stopped at a gasoline station in Berkeley, California, run by a Sikh fellow. I thought I'd practice my Hindi with him. When he found out that I stayed at the temple in Kainchi, the first thing he said was, "Oh, you belong to that Baba. I visited him. He gave me puris. Nobody else gives you food just for nothing." Many of the poor people in the areas around the temple or on pilgrimages came to depend upon the food that was given freely for their survival. But for the rest of us, such excessive feeding and continuous preoccupation with food seemed to indicate that the food represented something more. My first impressions focused on all the food that was present. I had just come down from Nepal, where I had been on a strict Buddhist meditation trip for a long time, and I saw all these people sitting down and stuffing their faces. I thought, "Oh, they don't know where it's at. Look at the gluttons." Then I sat down to eat, and in a few days I was stuffing my face. I had never before experienced such a feeling as that. Literally, I could not get enough to eat. It was as if I were feeding my spirit. He offered the pera, a sweet, back to me to eat, and oddly enough, I turned it down. What was in my mind was that I felt completely filled and someone else should have it. So he gave it to someone else. At another darshan, he had filled my hands with peras, which I promptly ate. Shortly thereafter, he started to give me another huge handful, which I turned down, thinking that I'd had my share. An Indian behind me became upset and told me I should never turn down Maharajji's prasad, that I should always take what he offers to me. Then, of course, I felt bad. Next, Maharajji offered me another handful, which I joyfully received. I arrived at the temple in November and lived there continuously until the end of March. During all that time, I was fed well, daily, and yet not a penny was ever asked of me in compensation. I couldn't understand it. Here I was, a relatively wealthy Westerner, and the Indians had such a hard time economically, and yet they would not accept payment. So I just kept sneaking money into the box at the temple. I was trying to hide somewhere around the temple, across the courtyard from where he came out the door. And when he came out, I got pushed by the people right up to the tucket. I tried always to be far away and hide myself, so when I got pushed near to him, I tried to hide behind the column, but people pushed me and pushed me. And Maharaji came out. I was scared and crying, and Maharaji gave me a pear. When I ate the pear, It made me feel like there was water all over inside me. It was like eating love alive. Since that day, this pear has always been in my mind, and nothing has ever matched this feeling. I have never eaten another pear since that day.
Ram 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 Shri Ram 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 Shri Ram 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 Shri Ram 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 Shri Ram 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 Ram.
I was trying to hide somewhere around the temple across the courtyard from where he came out the door, and when he came out, I got pushed by the people right up to the tucket. I tried always to be far away and hide myself, so when I got pushed near to him, I tried to hide behind the column, but people pushed me, and Maharaji came out. I was scared and crying, and Maharaji gave me a pear. When I ate the pear, it made me feel like there was water all over inside me. It was like eating love alive. Since that day, this pear has always been in my mind, and nothing has ever matched this feeling. I have never eaten another pear since that day. One time, when my daughter was young and still with us, we stopped in Buwali en route to Kainchi for darshan. She wanted jalebis, but there were none. I said, when we get to Kainchi, there will be some. But when we got there, we found that it was a Hindu fast day, Ekadashi, and so only boiled potatoes were served. As we entered Maharaji's room, to our surprise, a man arrived with a large basket full of jalebis. Maharaji said, "Give some to that girl first," pointing to my daughter. He knows everything. A sadhu once came to the temple and upbraided Maharaji. "You do nothing for people. You don't feed or help people." Maharaji said, "Give him a room and food and money." Yet all the devotees felt like doing was beating the sadhu. They got him around a corner to do so. But Maharaji yelled at them. After the sadhu had eaten, he became very quiet. Maharaji said, "The thing you people don't understand is that he is hungry. He hasn't eaten for 3 days. What else could he do but what he did?" Once I said, "Why do you feed so many people and why so much? I could eat 4 chapatis and stay alive." Maharaji answered, "We have an inner thirst for food. We don't know of it. Even if you don't feel you can eat, your soul has a thirst for food. Take Prasad." The nature of the food that was served around Maharaji is worthy of note, for though it satisfied our souls, our intellects were often appalled. The usual diet at the temple consisted of white rice, puris and potatoes, and sweets of almost pure white sugar. The diet was starch, grease and sugar, and much black tea. All the sensitivity that the Western preoccupation with diet had awakened in us screamed at this diet. And yet this was Prasad. Did you reject Prasad, or did you give up your dietary models? What did you do when the love came in the form of starch, grease, sugar and tea? Greasy potatoes were one thing. A blessing from the Guru, however, was an entirely different matter. I previously believed that the saint should observe certain restrictions as to food. Also, I never took tea or coffee, and I ate a very simple small diet. I never took medicines. I wondered how people could take so many pills. After Maharaji left, I caught a cold. At first, the doctors thought it was a flu. Then they said it was a more serious disease. So I had to take 15 pills a day to cure it. It was all Maharaji's play. The doctors also told me to put on weight, so from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. I ate. I wondered how I could eat so much when previously I had only eaten 2 chapatis at a meal. All my old ideas vanished. This was similar to what happened when I came to Kainchi, prior to which time I never drank tea. On the first day at Kainchi, I did not take it. And on the second day, when Maharaji asked me if I would drink tea, I didn't reply. The third morning, he asked me, "Do you want tea?" "You don't want it. Here, you should drink tea. It's a cold place." So this time I drank tea, and since that day I take anything, tea, coffee, whatever. When Maharaji spoke about diet, he generally ignored the nutrition issues that so concerned some of us, but he did suggest that we eat simple foods. And he also advised us to eat food that was indigenous to the area in which we were living. And then to various devotees he gave specific instructions about diet, advising one to forego wine, meat, eggs, hot spices, because they lead to an impure heart. Yet to another he said, "What is this concern with what is meat and what is not? When you can live without meat, well and good. When you cannot live without it, then you should have it." Some he counselled to eat alone, silently, simply, or with a few people. To others his instructions concerned the value of fasts 3 times a month, although when you were around him he interrupted any fast you might attempt. From this confusion of instructions, most of us came away with the feeling that he was counseling us to trust our intuitions rather than get too caught in rules. At least that's what we wanted to hear. Because he fed us all so unstintingly with love and attention as well as food, we sought ways to reciprocate. Yet his life was so simple that there was nothing to give. So most people brought flowers or food, especially fruits and sweets. These he would then distribute by his own hand or touch the food and then have it distributed. Such touching or blessing by such a being as Maharaji converted the food vibrationally from a physical material into prasad. In the absence of the physical form of such a being as Maharaji, food is offered in the heart and the mind of the devotee before partaking. If the food is offered purely, the beings to which it is offered accept an essence from the god. Then we eat what is left, which has become prasad. In the West, this would be similar to our saying grace before eating. Maharaji also showed a continuous concern for the quality of the food that was being distributed from the kitchens at the temple. He would call the cooks and examine the food. If it was poorly made, he would yell. If it was unnecessarily extravagant, he would yell. When I was living up on the hill in that little kuti, Maharaji would send me away with a box of food every evening. But when he gave it to me, he always checked the entire box, putting his hands all through it. Maharaji would tell the mothers that the vibrations with which food was cooked could definitely affect your state of mind. He would say that if you truly made your food prasad, it would purify you. But even a very pure man, if he ate food that was prepared without proper consciousness, that food would create confusion in his mind. He said that eating purely prepared food made a yogi great. At the market, I bought some clusters of green berries to give to Maharaji. They were kind of dirty, so I very carefully washed them. Then I put them back into the bag. But you know how it is with Indian bags. It broke and the berries fell all over the ground, so I carefully washed them again, berry by berry. It took a long time. Finally, I brought them to Maharaji. Everybody else, of course, had also brought fruits. But the minute I put them down, Maharaji appeared very excited. He spread them all out very carefully, studied them, ate many of them himself, and distributed the rest as something particularly precious. I felt that he sensed the love and care with which I had prepared the berries. For some time, Maharaji would eat only the food prepared by one particular Ma. She told me that if one day she was too busy and someone had helped her with it, he would refuse to eat it. She said that she would sometimes lie to him just so he would eat the food. She would say that she had cooked the food by herself without help. Still, he would push it away. He seemed to be able to feel the difference. My Brahmin grandfather took his food alone, as was the tradition. The food was specially prepared for him by my wife. He had started to eat when Maharaji arrived, so father ordered more food prepared. My wife wanted to give Maharaji a special item of food that she had made for grandfather, so she gave some to Maharaji. Father got angry. How can you give Maharaji other than freshly prepared food? He asked my wife. Then Maharaji called him and said, the freshly prepared food was eaten by the sadhu. The special food offered out of such pure love was eaten by God. Most of the time, Maharaji ate alone and distributed all that we devotees brought to him. But it was each person's dearest desire that when we brought the fruit or other food, Maharaji eat some of it himself. And when he did, it felt like such a precious moment, one in which Maharaji had accepted a token of our love. Once, when I brought a soft apple and peeled it and cut it up and held it up before him as I had seen the Indians do, he reached down and took a few pieces from my hand. And I experienced that ecstasy you might feel if a wild bird or deer had come and eaten out of your hand. Living in the ashram at Kainchi, I seldom had the opportunity to buy anything to offer Maharaji. Somehow I obtained a pomegranate one day. I waited until late afternoon when Maharaji would walk to the back and give darshan outdoors in front of the showers. Only a few ashram guests, along with an occasional VIP or a villager coming on business, would be present for darshan after the last bus had left. It was an intimate hour which glows in my memory like the setting sun on the hilltops across the valley. I was removing seeds from the pomegranate and offering them to him. He would eat a few and hand out a few, and once they were shelled, I would give him a few more. As I was running out, an Indian matron passed her handful of jewel-like seeds under the tucket to me so that I would have more to pour into his hand. By the time these were gone, she had few more for me. This continued in a very casual manner. We all, Maharaji included, acted as if nothing unusual were going on under the tucket. She obviously enjoyed as much as I to see Maharaji accept and eat our offering and to play this truly delightful game with him. I purchased a dozen oranges to take to Maharaji. We arrived at the tiny temple where Maharaji was visiting and where many Indian devotees already had gathered and were crammed into his room. As soon as our presence was made known, we were pushed to the space just in front of the wooden table on which Maharaji sat. I offered the oranges to him. There was already much fruit and some sweets on the table. But then something happened that surprised me. Maharaji started to go at my oranges as if he had never seen food before. As each orange was opened, he would grab it and eat it very rapidly, and before my eyes he consumed 8 oranges. I was being fed the other 4, at Maharaji's insistence, by the school principal. Later I asked KK, a close Indian friend, about this peculiar behavior. KK explained that Maharaji was taking on karma from me and that this was a technique by which he often did that. The meaning of taking on karma is that a very high being such as Maharaji can work with subtle vibratory patterns and can take from devotees patterns with which they have been stuck for this lifetime or many lifetimes. For example, such a being could take away your sorrow or your ill fortune. This process, which is a familiar one among Indian saints as well as sorcerers and medicine men from many parts of the world, can be done in a variety of ways. Often, the medicine man works with a lock of hair or the feces or urine of the person suffering the effects of some negative forces, either inside or outside themselves. In India, such karmic healers often work with things the devotees give them. Shirdi Sai Baba, a very great saint of India, would ask his devotees for annas, small coins worth less than a penny. These he would handle continuously until he had extracted the negative condition from the devotee unto himself. This negative material he then could release from himself by other yogic processes. Another well-known guru in India asks his devotees for cigarettes and smokes from morning till night, year in, year out, often 3 or 4 cigarettes at a time. Maharaji's way was to eat the karma, and he seemed to have no limit to his capacity. One woman, a long-standing devotee, told the following story. Once in Bhumiyadar, where Maharaji was staying the night, we had all taken our evening meal and had retired at 10:30 p.m. Around 1 a.m., Maharaji started yelling that he was very hungry and that he must have dal and chapatis. I awoke and reminded him that he had already eaten, but he insisted that he must have dal and chapatis. Who can understand the ways of such a being? So I woke Brahmachari Baba, the priest, and he built a fire and I prepared the food. It was ready about 2 a.m. and we watched Maharaji consume the food with great hunger. Then we all retired again. At about 11 the next morning, a telegram arrived saying that one of Maharaji's old devotees had died down on the plains about 150 miles away the previous night at 2 a.m. When the telegram was read to Maharaji, he said, "You see, that's why I needed chapatis and dal." This aroused our curiosity because we didn't see at all. We pressed him, but he would say nothing more. Finally, after 2 or 3 days of our persistence, he said, "Don't you see? He, the man who had died, had been wishing for chapatis and dal, and I didn't want him to carry that desire on through death, for it would affect his future birth."
Ram 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 Shri Ram 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 Shri Ram 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 Shri Ram 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 Shri Ram 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 Shri Ram 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 Shri Ram 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 Ram